I've always believed, and I think Bliss has always believed, and the way we've always approached a product, a production, not a product, but a production, is you have to be faithful to the music and to the libretto, okay? And that does put a kind of a restriction on. But within that framework, if you are an intelligent interpretive artist, you don't really have to think about, oh, I've got to put a new stamp on this. I don't have to be eccentric and different to make it mine. Your own personality will speak through, if you have enough cultural background, your own personality will speak through the project and guide you to create what is distinctly yours. And what is distinctly yours isn't necessarily the colors you painted or the brush strokes you use or the materials you use sculpturally to make it. What makes it yours has to do with a lot of different qualities. The interpretive value, the honesty of it, the telling the story, meaning communication to the audience, because it is all about communication. One of the things I hate most in the art world, whatever the art is to have an explanation to the audience, whether it's viewing a painting or viewing a stage production, telling the audience what it's all about. The actual painting or the stage production should make itself clear to the audience what it's all about, so that the emotion can come through without a complexity of the audience member having to say, I don't understand that. Art is about communication. If you start getting off base, off the tale, off the story you're trying to tell, if you suddenly set Tosca in
a steam bath.
In a steam bath, as many directors and designers tend to do today, or La Traviata in a cornfield, or what is generally known as Euro trash productions, but now they're worldwide trash productions. They do them in America, they do them in Russia, they do them everywhere. Once you get directors and designers going that way, it's only confusing to an audience. And I find that to be bad opera production, bad art, bad interpretation. It means the director and the designer often feel they're smarter, wiser to tell this story in their own particular way. Now, if I step back 50 years stylistically, there were some designers working who would be familiar perhaps to an older generation, American or European, like Jean-Pierre Pennell, who was a designer and eventually a director as well. Ming Cho Lee, who taught at Yale for a long time, whose work was always recognizable because they had a repetitive style, a little bit like Maurice Utrillo as a painter. It's a repetitive style that, although Maurice Utrillo painted Paris scenes, he didn't paint San Francisco and New York and a lot of still lifes like Cézanne. Maurice Utrillo was known by his style, but he limited himself to doing what he chose. He wasn't working as an interpretive artist where the material was chosen by someone else. We in the theater are interpreting material chosen and composed by someone else, whether it be Puccini or Stravinsky or Monteverdi or Wagner. They made the choice. It's their music. And we have to find the way to have our own voice, and yet we have to remain faithful to them as colleagues.
Could I just interrupt? We always say that we have to be colleagues with the composer and librettist.
Right.
Not, let's say, interpreters, not somebody on the outside who has this material to work with. We feel the four of us.
Time to time, you can find a totally new way of looking at things. We have done a La Bohème, which is supposed to take place in the 1830s in Paris. We decided to do it in the 1940s because, in fact, the Bohemians of the 1830s, after the Second World War, there was a second that's when Paris and Greenwich Village became Bohemian heaven. And the Bohemians rose again. And Paris is not so different, visually speaking. Just add electricity and electric lights to old 1830s Paris, and it's still Paris.
Costumes are different.
Costumes are different, but
representing the same idea of the Bohemian world.
When we did Aida here, which opened the Art Center, you knew it was Egypt, but there was very little Egyptian about it. We used elements, and it was a kind of postmodern architectural environment, if you will. But we weren't doing Aida, shall we say, as a neo-Nazi against the Russians' political diatribe. And that's the kind of thing I resent. You can go only so far. You do have your parameters, but you can keep your own voice.